It's the Sports Peninsula podcast. Coming up, the Lions have not lost 2 consecutive games since November of 2022, and that streak continues as Detroit rolled into the desert and held down a very potent Cardinals offense, winning the game 20-13 last Sunday. The Lions started fast, and then the defense shut down Kyler Murray and company to improve to 2-1 on the season. Next up, a Monday Night Football showdown against the pesky Seattle Seahawks, who have beaten the Lions in each of the last 2 seasons. The Lions will be in their alternate black unis to put on a show for Joe, Troy, and the gang, so we'll preview this one next. Now here's your Sports Peninsula team. Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Peninsula podcast. My name is Dave Drzezinski Drew, and it is going to be fun on Monday night at Ford Field when the Detroit Lions take on the Seattle Seahawks, and we'll be previewing that game next and more. Joining me first to talk about the Lions, Coach Andy Shield and Marine City Mariners. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Drew. Doing well. 2-1 with one squad and a magic number of 2 with the other. So, here we go. It was, we'll get into it more and more. I mean, the more and more I reflect back on this game, I think we are looking at a surprise contender for the NFC West in the Arizona Cardinals. Things are different in that division this year. I mean, I don't know if the long term it is. We'll get into it, but it's going to be a lot of fun, guys. Yeah,
no doubt about that. And we're also joining us from Wisconsin, the Uper, Brad Harrison. Brad, how you doing?
Hey, Drew, doing just fantastic. I, love having MLB extra innings where you can watch it living here in Wisconsin, and Sunday ticket watching it here where I'm living. So what a treat to be a fan of these teams.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was thinking about the last 4 years and say from 2000 to 2023 in Detroit, it's been a rough time with the sports teams. But then in the last season, my gosh, the Lions have transcended everything. But now we got the Tigers, who, quite frankly, now are in the driver's seat. You'd like to think they're in already, as long as they can beat the White Sox, who I think have lost 120 games this season. But you got to be careful there because they're going to be throwing some AAA arms, and I think I think their ace is going to be going in this one because they said they're going to have to beat our best. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. Like, cool. Would love to do that. And then the Red Wings almost made the playoffs last year, and they're coming, they're looking better on paper. The Pistons, they're going to be better. We don't know what they're going to be, but they're going to be better. They're not going to be a 14-win team. I can tell you that right now. So things are looking.
We still have the reigning national champion football team in Ann Arbor.
This is true. And they look good against USC. So, yep, 10 and Spartans now. What, 3-1, Coach?
3-1 should be 4-0. I mean, they defensively just did a masterpiece in the red bandana game over at Chestnut Hill and Boston College. And Penn Castellanos, 15 carries, 15 yards. He ran wild against FSU and against Clemson. So, I mean, that's a bummer that they couldn't pull that one out. But we're going to be in the house on Saturday to support young David in his film work against the Buckeyes. Mark D'Antonio Ring of Honor game. It's going to be pretty awesome.
That's going to be really cool. Really cool. Well, fellas, let's talk about last week's game. Back on track. I mean, they weren't really off track, but let's face it, the Lions still haven't played a clean game, 60-minute game. But last week, Coach, they really put together some nice things. The offense sputtered in the second half, but man, that defense showed up. Talk about that.
They really, really did. And this game was a physical football game. I mean, we know the attrition that it's taken on the Lions, and everyone saw, and I think the biggest visual was in the fourth quarter when Trey McBride had to leave the contest with his concussion protocol. I mean, that was a very physical game. We've got a lot of guys knocked out for the year out of this game, which tells you a little something about, the Detroit Lions and the grit. We knew that. We came out on top and were kind of in control of this thing. Really, after the 2-minute warning in the second quarter, which, okay, that was a big flip in things. I can understand and see things both sides, but I agree with what happened in reality because that's just how it worked out. And that hook and ladder was something else, and that wound up being almost a wrap on the scoring in that game, really, for the Lions' perspective. Although we moved the football, throughout the second half, Still saw some mistakes, but I think we saw a pretty good football team in the Arizona Cardinals. I think things are different in the NFC West this year. I mean, I guess just by the first 4 games, and hey, let's face it, the Niners are going to likely get their feet under the ground, and things are going to happen. But you're not going to have the Los Angeles Rams. They are so injured. They had a great victory against San Francisco last week, but I mean, if these injuries are long term, the law of averages are not going to work well in favor for the Los Angeles Rams. Seattle, we're going to find out. We're going to find out. We will have played 3 of the 4 NFC West teams. Here already by week 4 of the season. So we really have our taste of that division, and we can really kind of measure up what Arizona is. It was a great victory nonetheless. Yes, did it kind of feel like the offense kind of went into a neutral gear for a little bit? We can credit Arizona to that to a certain degree. We had an unforced error here or there as well, and killed some drives. But all in all, that defensive game plan was a masterpiece. And Aaron Glenn, it looks like he's really made some adjustments on running quarterbacks, which is a great thing for the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about that, Brad, because when Coach and I previewed this one last week, we said 2 things got to happen. First and foremost, you got to collapse that pocket on Murray and don't let him hurt you on the ground. He had, I think, 45 yards rushing, but that was it. And he led this team in rushing. So, and then also make him beat you with his arm in the pocket. He couldn't do it, and they kept him in there. Talk about that.
Yeah, I hated to miss the conversation last week, guys. I didn't come into this game with a confidence, based on what we'd seen the 2 weeks prior. And they proved me. They proved themselves tremendously to me that they could stop that running quarterback. They made him use his arm, and it was just shocking to me how poor his throws were. But I think exactly that. It was the pressure in the pocket. I think we saw what a DJ Reader on this defense looks like, and it was a beautiful thing.
And the new Levy, he's a difference maker too.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, let's Coach, you touched on earlier with the injuries. I mean, you got Marcus Davenport's lost for the season. So we only got about 2.5 games of Marcus Davenport. Pretty nasty. I mean, I wouldn't call it a dirty play. It happens on every play. You try to rip and tear and defeat blocks. And he that elbow bent the wrong way, man. It was pretty ugly. It's unfortunate. Big Frank Ragnow with the torn pec. He's going to miss this week. And thankfully, the bye's coming up. Maybe he'll be ready for Dallas. I don't know. And Coach Campbell basically said they're going to hold him back. They need him for the long haul.
99.9% PFF grade as an offensive lineman with a torn pectoral muscle.
Unreal. Unreal.
One of a kind.
And he's not happy about sitting this game.
No.
And you talked about Davenport losing him. But now let's think about Brad Holmes and what we have behind Davenport. Josh Pascal. Wasn't he a 2nd round pick?
Yep.
Did I get that right?
A 3rd round pick.
Third round pick. Okay. At any rate,
that sports hernia injury is just it's really keeping him in a different gear than everybody else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a quality backup. He's going to have his opportunity.
Sure.
Right. He's going to have his opportunity. And we'll see if James Houston can get it right during practice. Like, I don't know. But that could be an injury, recovering from that injury might be too much too. But there's talent behind these guys. That I don't think you can ever replace Ragnow. Our offense will be different without Frank Ragnow. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not sure how that's going to work out, Coach. I imagine Graham Glasgow's going to slip over to center. And
I don't know if they'll bring Colby Sorsdahl over to the left guard. I mean, it's not going to be Manu. He's not ready. He's not ready. So it's going to be that's exactly what they're going to do. It'll be Awasika. That's who's going to play left guard. That's what they're going to do.
And he did it last year.
He's a very quality guard. He's a quality backup left guard. That's what they're going to do. They'll move Glasgow in. And as
much as I hate Ragnow being out, this was the offensive line for about 4 games last year.
Absolutely was, and we did some winning with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's you hit the nail on the head, Drew. It's not ideal, but it's something that shouldn't shake the confidence like we would have in previous generations with the Detroit Lions. That kind of an injury would be put us in the other side of the column. It just would.
There just was never that kind of depth. There was never that kind of depth.
And I think we're even getting close to where that will be at the quarterback position too. We're still a year away from that. You still got to acclimate a little bit, but I'm thinking of year 3, Hendon Hooker, just with what he can bring to the table. If something were to happen to Jared Goff, it's again not ideal, but we could we could just say, okay, if it's a 4 to 6 week injury or something like that, all right, we can keep all plans intact, Yep. The roster is much, much deeper. That's a credit to Brad Holmes. And of course the coaches and stuff like that, but these are professional football players. They get brought in sometimes in 48 hours and are expected to play in games, like whether it's a running down on kickoffs and things like that. They will. They'll get a guy off of waivers and he'll play like he's literally been on the team for 48 minutes. He may never even get into the locker room in the facility yet because they traveled. But he's down there playing in the game. So that kind of thing happens. And the Lions are very, very deep, well into the practice squad. We signed Allen Robinson today, to the active roster. And we're talking about a former Pro Bowl wide receiver. So, the Lions' depth is key, and that department is just on point right now.
We were joking around when they announced that practice squad, remember you guys? This roster could beat some of the Rod Marinelli teams.
Yeah.
These would be, at least they'd be starters on Rod's.
Oh, yeah.
They would have been. Those were all of those guys. And we would have been just with big blue Kool-Aid mustaches that Allen Robinson's our number 1 receiver. We signed in free agency.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah, I know he's 34 or whatever he is.
Different kid, yeah.
That doesn't matter. It's going to be different this year. Yeah. That's another thing of the past. And Allen would have had his 51 catches for 800 yards and 4 touchdowns, and we would have been 4-13. And a pedestrian year and a subpar team. But here he is. He's going to be. I'm anxious to kind of see that. Now we've got Patrick and him signed to the active roster.
Yes,
is that true?
Yeah. And then you got Raymond, JMO, and St. Brown. And then I think I don't know if Kennedy's still. I don't think carrying the 6. He may end up being.
I wonder if they put him back out.
It's possible.
Back some picks for him.
I did. Yeah, I didn't see that. But yeah, Robinson's definitely on the active roster for the week, and he dressed last week too. So yeah,
Patrick's and Allen Robinson are receivers 4 and 5.
Yeah, that's
Patrick's taken Khalif's snaps for sure.
He's a big X target. He fits that role, and that's something I think Goff likes too. He likes that kind of comeback route guy, sideline route guy. And he's got all those. He is the replacement for Josh Reynolds. It's essentially like we traded those two for each other.
I was just thinking that, Coach. That's right. You got it. And then Patrick, I like Reynolds a lot, but Patrick's probably a little more physical. But maybe not.
He's thicker. Yeah. He can block more, do some of those things.
Oh, man. I tell you what, that's been key. Jameson Williams, last year we highlighted it often. This year he's stepping up again. His downfield blocking is very good. He does what he needs to do. So it's awesome. Let's talk about this game coming up. Monday Night Football, guys. We're going to see I didn't put the blue helmet on there. No, what are you going to do? I slipped up. Last year, I jumped the gun on the blue helmet, and I looked a fool. So I'm not going to do that.
Not a lot of photos of that baby yet, is there, Drew?
No, not really. Not really. I think it's out now because now it's for sale in full force. Because I ordered mine back in April, and I just got it right before the season started. So they were holding that bad boy back to the very last minute to drum up interest. But it's a great helmet. But it's going to be a great game, guys. And last 2 seasons, the Lions have been able to score over 40 points against the Seattle team. Sadly, though, they gave up more than they scored in each of those games, losing big to the Seattle Seahawks 2 years in a row. Start with you, Brad. This Lions offense this year against the Seattle defense, how do you attack them?
Run the ball. I mean, you have to own that line of scrimmage, because their pass defense is number one in the NFL right now. I mean, these guys fly around back there. So I think you just do what you run our game, put our best, that offensive line, and David Montgomery. And then, figure out the balance between him and Jameer, right? Like I'm regretting some of the things I've said about just keep running the ball, because there has to be some kind of balance. I'd like something softened up in the middle with Amon-Ra, and get Laporta in the mix a little bit if he's good with that ankle. But I think our rush game versus their rush defense is our opportunity, because their pass defense is excellent, and it's going to take some work for Jared to loosen them up. But maybe by that second half, you are loosening them up.
Now but you bring that up. It's been interesting, Coach. I'm sure you've seen this too. How it's been first, the second and fourth quarter with Montgomery, the first and third with Jahmyr Gibbs, and they're getting around 90 yards a game on average. They're both on pace for 1,000-yard seasons right now. You concur with Brad's assessment?
Yeah, and it didn't feel like it for me. I mean, it just didn't. I mean, going into this game, we had the second best, offensive yards production on offense in the NFL. And we've been, at least this guy's been saying that we've been spitting and sputtering a little bit on the offensive end. We were actually always moving the ball. We just weren't scoring it really well against Tampa. We still are moving the ball fantastic. Just a little more, some turnovers at the beginning of the year here. And Jared Goff had some bad throws too last year in bigger games. And we had pick sixes and things like that. We've seen some unforced errors there. We saw him uncomfortable against Tampa. I think Brad does allude to a great point. Yes, Frank Ragnow is down, but we alluded to what's going to replace him there. And Graham Glasgow kicking in from the left guard will bring Awasika in, who's got a lot of reps and starts at left guard. And we can still continue to do the things that we're going to do, loosen things up, get Jared Goff comfortable, get Jared Goff confident again, and make that hay and score those points. The biggest difference in this game, however, is going to be the Detroit Lions defense. We could not keep Geno Smith inside of a contained principle to save our lives last year. He was booting and running all over the place against us. That's not happening.
Yeah,
if it does, I don't know where's the breakdown here. That's gonna. I mean, we just bottled up Kyler Murray for 45 yards.
We'll deep dive that defense next coming up, but and I agree with you guys on the offense. What it's going to do, the Lions are going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball. They're going to be effective running it. It's going to draw those linebackers and safeties in. It's going to create single coverage. It's going to open things up, possibly up the middle. If they're still leery about the passing game, which I'm sure they will be, those safeties might stay deep. That opens up the middle of the field. There's your crossing routes. And then all of a sudden you can take your shots down deep. But yeah, definitely establishing the run is going to be very important in this game. I'm confident the Lions are going to score against this team without question. But Coach, as you start touching on the defense, let's talk about that. How are they going to defend Geno Smith in this offense? Because very similar to Kyler Murray in terms of how he plays. However, there's three receivers on the Seahawks team that are superior to most in the NFL. We're talking about DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and then Jackson Smith and Jigba. Talk about that. How do you stop this offense? Because the Lions have not been able to do it.
No, it's keeping the quarterback inside, making him throw when we want him to throw it, just like they did it with Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray threw the football on the Detroit Lions terms, not on Kyler Murray's terms. And that's what you have to do with a mobile quarterback. You have to make him play your game. And that's by keeping him hemmed in and making him a pocket passer. They're uncomfortable in doing it. They do not feel comfortable. It's happy feet. Balls are thrown high. They're typically not as accurate as they are when they're on the move. Where you can do that to a pocket passer like a Jared Goff, and that's what's going to get him off keel is when you make him move. So these are the type of quarterbacks that they have faced. In Kyler Murray and now Geno Smith. Baker Mayfield was a hybrid of it. Were we perfect there? No. We were playing a lot of defense that game, though. And then Matt Stafford is the pocket presence guy. So, you know, I really think last week was a precursor to what you're going to probably see defensively, you know, not this coming week on Monday, with the exception we'll be even in a louder indoor environment on the side of the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, it was pretty loud in there, ironically, Brad. But I saw a lot of Honolulu Blue out there in Arizona. I mean, mind you, that's much like I live near Nashville. It's kind of a transplant city. Arizona is really kind of a transplant state, but the Lions travel well. But talk about piggybacking on what Coach just said about how to attack the Seattle offense. Man, how do you cover those receivers?
Well, that's where the game is going to be won or lost. Fortunately, we were playing with different DBs than we did last year.
That's a good point.
So our talent levels, you know, higher. Even though, you know, we're feeling the effects of a rookie cornerback, but the kid's keeping his nose in there and not backing down. He's not shying away from the next play. He needs to chill out with the hands. I mean, he'll be fine. You know, it's painful when that laundry comes out and you watch him just run over a receiver, you know, as the ball's in the air. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I'm not concerned about Terry and Arnold. But that's really where this game, that if Seattle takes this game into control, it's because of Geno Smith's legs and DK Metcalf turning into Calvin Johnson on us, because he surely can. And so I think it's, you know, what Aaron Glenn does with the backside of that defense is going to be important. And, you know, we're obviously confident about our front, you know, with Hutch and Reader.
You know, Kenneth Walker's not 100%.
He's not playing, right? Or maybe
all Zach Charbonnet at them.
Yeah, so Zach Charbonnet will go, and you know, they're formidable. This is, you know, but man, how many times can we lose to this team? I mean, at some point, just like Tampa, this is a third game, man.
True, it's
this
true.
Is a third game. Things got to balance out. They're two good football teams we're going to watch on Monday night.
Yeah, I mean, Seattle is 3-0 now. Mind you, I would say the Lions have played a much tougher schedule at this point in terms of who the Lions have played. I mean, the Rams are still a good football team, even though Arizona throttled them in week 2. But the Rams came back. They beat the Niners, and then you know, it's just one of those things. Tampa's good. I mean, we knew that from last year, and Arizona's a surprise to your point, Coach. So, yeah, I mean, this is going to be a good football team. Detroit knows what they're coming into. I think the crowd's going to have to play, and they will play a big factor on offense. When the Lions are on defense, be very disruptive to Geno Smith. They'll be ready for it. But, Coach, I want to ask you this. Pete Carroll's not the head coach anymore. Doesn't mean they're going to disapprove, but, man, that's a loss. Talk about that.
Well, he's been replaced by former Michigan defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald, lest we forget what he was 3 years ago. And then he was the Michigan defensive coordinator. So this is a really, really good calculated mind. I know, you know, through Coach Scar, who is close to the Harbaugh family, and knows John Harbaugh had nothing he thought of so highly of Mike Macdonald. Mm-hmm. And you know, and he wanted him back like instantly. I mean, you know, to be the DC over there with Baltimore, which he did, and that parlayed into this head coaching situation. So they have a great young football mind, and he's a defensive-minded guy. So I mean, that's the recipe for success. You know, a defensive mind. I mean, we see all these offensive gurus, but just how long do they last, fellas? Just how long is their shelf life? How, you know, Norm Chow, Mike Martz, Cliff Kingsbury, Bill Walsh and Mike. Okay, that's an exception. Now, there's a phenomenal guy that produced all sorts of coaches, but all these different offensive big shots, you know, that they had things going until the defensive guys got a hold of them. And
let's not forget what Mike Macdonald did to us last year in Baltimore. That game was a mess.
Right, that was probably our biggest butt whipping that we took.
Right.
And, and so, I mean, you know, again, These aren't Baltimore Ravens players. These are Seattle Seahawks. And this is a different Detroit Lions team as well. But he really has kind of a prototype to what he had as the DC in Baltimore, with a mobile quarterback offense. This one's maybe not quite as run dominant, although they can be, because that's what they were previously under Carroll. Like you said, they've got the great receiving core. But Zach Charbon's a hard runner. He can be a guy that can control clock and play some good defense, and before you know it, it's a 13-7 game or something like that midway through the third quarter, and and they're driving. And so, I mean, if Mike McDonald, yes, Pete Carroll is a loss. There's no doubt about that. Pete Carroll's a fine football coach, tremendous defensive guy, had the recipe for success, great success. He's teaching classes at USC this semester, which is, already he's back there teaching. So, that's kind of impressive to me. And at his age, he's 71 years old. And but you know what? Mike McDonald is a quality replacement, David.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I would just sorry to interrupt you guys.
No, go ahead.
I just want to congratulate our listeners and our subscribers. There's not another podcast in America that's talking about Norm Chow on their podcast. But we are. Here we are. So thank you for subscribing.
June Jones, Miles Davis, and a couple other ones.
Thank you. I was just going to say.
I named you two former University of Hawaii head coaches, guys.
Like and subscribe, right. People.
You got it, baby. That's what you got to do. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Hey, you know what? But coach, you're so right. The gimmicky offenses come and go, and the architects of those come and go. But yeah, the defensive gurus, they stick and stay, with a few exceptions. Of course, like you said, Bill Walsh, certainly one of them. Guys, let's talk predictions for this one. Man, Brad, I got to start with you. How you seeing this shaking down? Do the Lions finally shake free of the Seahawks?
Have to. It's just, if we are who Dan Campbell says we are, we beat this team on Monday night in Detroit. And 3.5-point favorites going into it. So I'm just, that's with complete belief in what Campbell has built. Because these rosters, we're dealing with a lot of injury. They're dealing with a lot of injury. I think Hutch is going up against another backup tackle. Are you serious? 4 weeks in a row it is? It's amazing. So they've got a lot. We're hurt. They're hurt. But, I believe in what Dan Campbell's doing, and we'll get the win.
Sounds great to me. Coach, how you seeing this?
Yeah, I agree. I think they, right now, there's a mojo running through that town, and they are competing with the Detroit Tigers a little bit. Not like seriously like a rival, but they this was, everyone's got blue houses. I got a big old blue house now here, with my lights and that kind of thing. Everything's all, Lions everywhere. Dan Campbell, every commercial, every lawyer is using him for their commercials, and every health system in Detroit is lining him up. And, it's Lions. You have maybe one of the greatest stories in Major League Baseball history come up here, and it's vibe in the city. If you thought Ford Field was fired up before, now they got a little Tiger fever in their lungs. When I'm not trying to be all over the place here, but when Torkelson hit that home run last night, do you hear what that stadium sounded like?
Oh, exploded.
It sounded like it was 2011 or 2006. And that kind of feeling is going to carry over to that game, and it already has this great vibe to it. The stadium's going to be alive, and those players love it. Those players absolutely love it. And, hey, we did find some identity when we were stalled out, driving the football, running the football, as Brad said, just like you alluded to, Drew. That's who we are, and now we have that defense to play, and that's what we got to do. We got to battle through these injuries, run the football and play defense, run the football and play defense, run the football and play defense, win this game 17-10, 17-13, 2017, something like that. I think it's very doable.
Close it out with a bootleg, man. That should be our thing,
Every game, right?
Off for 13 yards.
Yeah.
Beat Seattle their own game.
One thing I liked about last week, one of the things I liked about last week, the Lions did control the clock on offense. Coach, you said it in week 2, the defense was on the field way too much, and it's ultimately what did them in. Even though it was a very winnable game, still that did hurt them. Last week, 36 minutes of time of possession changes things a lot. That was one of the first things we mentioned too, is keep Murray off the field in general. That helps. I think you got to do the same thing here. Wow, I still can't help but say this is going to be a higher scoring game, but I think Vegas might be right, 34-30 Lions. But I think they're going to get some key turnovers. It's going to be I expect the Lions to play more of a bend but don't break type of defense here, because they're going to contain Smith, but he's going to get his. But inside in the red zone, I think that's where they're going to step up and get a turnover or two. And then the offense has to be efficient for 60 minutes. And when I say that, meaning get in the end zone. The red zone efficiency's got to be there. You've got to have that, and I think they will. I see no reason to pick against the Detroit Lions at this point. And I love saying that, because there were many years where it was very difficult to pick the Lions to win any game. But I don't see why they would lose this game unless they have a breakdown in scheme and function. I'm not going to pick that. So there's no way. Lions win this game, in my opinion. We're all on board on that. Yeah, we were wrong on the Tampa game. Oh, well. So we'll be 3-1 after Monday. So that's good.
I don't know how many times I'm going to pick them to lose. So, I'm going to be wrong some more.
Yeah, honest to God, I don't see why.
Not
you
would. At home. We're not picking losses at home. That's what happened the last
7 years.
2 years was
my life. 48 years of my life, I had to do that.
Yup. So I mean, obviously everyone's excited about. We're excited about the Lions. This is great. We're excited about the Tigers. Wings are in camp, already doing good things. It's a special time. The Pistons will start camp shortly. So this is one of the best times of the year for any sports.
First goal of the season, Drew, scored by a young man from St. Clair, Michigan.
Yes, Tyler Mott. Yeah, that's awesome. And he's going to play a part in this team. I
don't know if you caught, and I know we're going into other topics here, but I almost texted you. They had it uploaded to YouTube. They had the inner squad on.
The red and white game.
Yeah, before the Chicago game, and Mott scored in that game too. So I mean, that's good. He's fitting in.
So it's great. It's great because it's not. They're smart. They're not going to count on him for that. So when he's able to do that secondary, third line scoring, you got to like that.
That little will get us over the top.
Absolutely. Brad, any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
No, man. A team that will not yield. Don't yield on Monday night, boys. Go get them.
Drew, what's your final word?
My final word is, how do you follow up a quote from Gridiron Heroes? That you don't. You cut it. We're done. We're out. Guys, thank you for watching and listening. Thank you for subscribing. Continue to support. We appreciate you. Looking to do a lot of things in the future too, so stick and stay with us and take care. Thanks for watching. We will talk to you all soon. Go Lions. This has been the Sports Peninsula Podcast. To subscribe to the podcast, simply click the subscribe button on our YouTube channel's homepage and give us a like. You can also follow our audio podcast on multiple platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts, just to name a few. Give us a follow on Twitter. Our handle is @SportsPodcast to check out our latest releases. Thank you again for watching and for your support. Remember, when you want to hear all about sports in the great state of Michigan, there is only one Sports Peninsula Podcast.